Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show. This is Sheila Mack, and today we are going to have our special guest, Cathleen Elle. She is the international best-selling author of Shattered Together and Women Who Rise. She's also a transformational speaker, a certified success coach, and a healer, and co-host of Beyond Your Best Plan podcast. All right, that is wonderful. So Kathleen she also shares powerful healing techniques for those who've experienced unexpected loss or hidden trauma. Well, I think this year we've all had a lot of unexpected trauma and loss. So welcome to the show. All right. Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself, Kathleen.
Thank you for having me, Sheila. It's great to be here. How I got into the sudden, unexpected loss arena business is because 10 years ago, my son actually took his life. And when he took his life, he was angry with me, and he had written a note saying he didn't want me at his service. So I have spent 10 years of my life of really investing my heart and soul, finances, energy, all that I can to move through my healing journey so I can assist others to move through theirs as well.
Wow. Yes. Mom to mom. I hate to say I understand to a certain extent. I lost my youngest son December 19th, 2019. So not that long ago. He had a heart condition, and we all were going to visit at grandma's house, and he didn't wake up. And so it's one of those things that when a life leaves us, it affects everything. And as a mom, I think it's really the hardest journey, and we all cope with the sacred steps to healing in different ways, so I think the more we share about it, the more people that we can help when these things happen. And unfortunately they do from time to time. And this month is our mental health awareness month as well. And there are so many people this year, especially struggling with feeling depressed or dealing with some issues where they want to give up or, whatever, because they don't know what to do. So that's part of why I have this show, to help people, to inspire hope and know that there's going to be another side to this.
Yes. So true. Sheila, I just need to say my heart goes out to you, and it's a long journey. It doesn't happen overnight, and much to the myths that are out there and the policies of 10 days of bereavement. It is not 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 minutes, 10 years. There are times of sadness even 10 years later. So exactly. You're a godsend for doing what you're doing. So thank you.
You too. Thank you. So let's see where to start with our questions and answers for the audience. I guess if we are somebody, I believe that when we do these shows, whoever shows up as someone that I'm interviewing is speaking to someone in our audience
Absolutely.
that may have just lost a loved one, may be grieving over some other loss in their life, because this year we've had so many. So what advice do you have for people as they're going through the emotions of going from shock and all the different stages of grieving? What advice would you have?
The first thing I tell anybody who's recently experienced sudden and unexpected loss of any sort is it's a grief prescription. It's the 3 Bs. Our A life is no longer. From the moment that we found out whatever it was, it is no longer. We now have to make our B life the best life that we can. And how you can do that, there's 3 Bs. First is B. Looking too far out into the future is only going to make your body pain harder. It's going to make your emotional pain just turn you into the spiral downward motion of depression and anxiety and anger, and just all the emotions are just going to be compounded, because there's no way, for me, there was no way of looking far out into the future, because there's no way I could have lived. I found myself lying on my son's grave 3 months after he transitioned, because I just wanted to die as well. We'll get into that story later. So be in the moment and just think about the next minute, think about the next hour, think about the next day, think about the next week. Whatever is manageable for you, that's where you focus. The second is to breathe. It is 4 squared, it's called. It's a 4 squared breathing process. If you focus on your breathing, that will bring you back down into your center. It will help ground you a little more. And it also helps to keep you healthy because it starts to move your oxygen a little deeper. Because really what we do when you're first in the moments, the immediate moments and months and maybe even year, is we actually stop consciously breathing. We breathe automatically, but we don't breathe deeply. So the 4 by 4 by 4 by 4 exercise is you breathe into the count of 4, you hold it to the count of 4, you breathe out to the count of 4, and you hold it to the count of 4. You do that 4 times in a row, morning, noon, dinner, and evening. And if you want to do it throughout the day, then do it throughout the day. And if it doesn't help for that 4 squared, do 4 squared, whatever is important to you. So be, breathe. And the third is believe. Believe you're not alone. There are others who have experienced something similar to what you're experiencing today. You can make it through this. I promise you. Reach out to someone because there are others there to help you. Believe that there is hope, there is inspiration. You can live a joy-filled, amazing, connected life. And believe that your loved one is not here in physical being, but they are there in energy. They are all around you. My son is my guide. He assisted me in writing Shattered Together. Like he's been there. So the 3 B's are the basic grief prescription that I provide, and it's just be, believe, and breathe.
Yes, and that's, we're oxygenating our brain. I was like, let's do a breath right now, everyone. Like, taking in a breath, and then so you're doing a 4 count and a 4 count. I already feel better. I mean, like it's something we need to do, and
it releases the tension in your back as well. If you
it really does help. And I know for me, we did a gratitude practice every day, and it was so hard. I have 6 children. I adopted 3 are my own. And with all that, I had the other kids with me. Some moved home to do college now. And I was like, we have to just, what are we grateful for? What memories are we grateful for? What are we grateful for today? And it was really hard to like have any gratitude at all. The first couple of days, it was like, nothing. You don't feel anything. And then that gratitude practice actually slowly started to help. And I could see it in my kids. They were very close. They were so loving. It was a really loving relationship my son had with everyone. And so with that, it was, I think that was so key. And this year, like we're sitting in the backyard and my daughter said, Mom, if ever there was a time we needed a universal pause for our family, this was it.
That's right.
It was a gift. And so you mentioned you took some time off and kind of took some time to find yourself again or go through the process. What is your advice for that? Like you said, it's not 10 days, right? What is your
I was very fortunate. I was the CEO of an association, a large commercial construction association that my board of directors were very, very generous. And so were my coworkers, my employees. And they understood that grief doesn't go away in 10 days. And so I was able to work a little from home. And I think that's actually a good thing right now. Again, another part of that's good for COVID is if you're experiencing your sudden and unexpected loss, then part of being home, there is a good and there is a not so good. But being home, you can go through a process that's a little different. Your memory will be gone. You will be in a fog. Like or I should say, from my perspective, my memory was gone. I didn't, when I did go back to work, I responded to a phone call. And when I hung up on the phone, I forgot who I was speaking with and I forgot what I had said I would do. Like it was literally in seconds. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And so be gentle with yourself, be kind. And if you feel like you can go into work part-time, then go into work part-time. Have the conversation, an open and frank conversation with your employer. Really, really important, so they understand where you're going through, because most people don't understand it. And if they do understand it, they don't want to know about it because of their discomfort of dealing with the situation. They don't know how to respond to you. Right. So it, as much as it doesn't feel fair that we as the ones that are grieving have to educate people, that's the only way that we're going to be able to mention their names. We're going to be able to say, listen, I can't function today. All I can do is cry. I can be here and be in my office, but I don't know how productive I can be. Right. And usually employers are pretty understanding for a period of time. So I think I took probably a month off. It was probably 3 weeks that I had, full weeks off. And then I gradually went back, and, I actually found myself sitting in the parking lot crying my eyes out. And then I texted the employees and just said, I can't come in. I'm here, but I'm going back home.
Yes.
So be gracious with yourself, treat yourself with grace and ease, communicate. There's all of these are in my book, Shattered Together, but communicate with your loved ones, because everyone grieves differently. Again, another myth that because we're grieving a certain way, we think that everyone should just read our mind and they should know that we're actually grieving. That's really not the case. We absolutely have to communicate what we need and what we want. And if you don't know what you need or want, speak that.
I think that's so true. And it's important for listeners that, maybe you haven't experienced a loss, but you have a family member, an employee, a friend, a coworker who has. And sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to bother them. I want to give them space. And you don't really know how, because everybody grieves differently, what does this person need? So it's nice to check in and say, hey, I'm here if you need anything. I don't want to bother you, or, whatever, however, depending on your friendship level, and say, but anytime or whatever you can offer, because there's times, I know for my daughter and I, where we went with family and friends that are like family, and we all have those friends that are even better than some family members, let's say, and they really held us through those times where it's like, okay, you're just going to come over and we're not going out. You can cry, you can scream, you can yell, you can express yourself, or we can talk about something else.
Right. Or you can sit there quiet.
Yeah,
you don't have to just sit here with us and we just want you to know that we're here with you.
Yeah. And that was like, wow. And I think you find out who your friend really are when you're going through this type of a situation, right? You're like, okay. And sometimes, so don't get offended if you have lost someone and people aren't acting like you would expect, because our expectations are different. It may be a cultural thing, the way they handle loss may be completely different. They might have a party and celebrate and be like, okay, I'm done. and so they don't understand, and that's okay. They don't have to. So,
I dedicated a whole chapter called You'll Be Surprised. People who won't show up and people will show up. And you'll be surprised, because like the people that you absolutely would expect, like, how could you not show up?
Exactly.
They can't show up the way you want them to show up. It's not that they're not showing up. It's just like when you're in the midst of it, you want people to show up a certain way. And not everyone can do that.
And then how about, I want to know, talking about friend circles and everything else, this was you only had the one son?
No, I have a daughter who is 13 months older than he is.
Okay. So that was also a different, I know for my kids experiencing the loss of a brother, it was different, and their friend circle doesn't have a lot to go by on losing someone. We had kids that wanted to travel to the ceremony that some of my kids were like, no, we don't want them there. And it was one of those things. It's like, I don't want somebody to travel 5 hours to, when they're on a budget or whatever, but they really wanted to be there. I had parents drive other young adults over from far away, from Northern California. A couple people flew in from Hawaii. It was just really interesting.
So beautiful.
Yeah. And then the best friends, or some of the closer friends, they were so afraid of facing death.
Yeah. Well, they're not only afraid of, if I may, I believe from the conversations I've had with the people who didn't show up, because, or they did show up in the best way that they knew how.
Yes.
But if I can say that, I think that some people don't show up because they're also having pain that the individual died or transitioned, but they're also seeing the pain of the family.
Right.
So they're not only experiencing their own pain of their loss, but then they have to face the pain of the family, other people that are close to them as well. So it's almost overwhelming for some people to show up, because in their brains, they are believing, this is my experience, they are believing that if they show emotion, then you're going to feel bad. But in fact, it's just the other way around. If you see people showing emotion, or at least for me, when I saw people show emotion, I'm like, yeah, Logan had an impact on you too. And I'm, like, that warms my heart that you're sharing that with me. Tell me what you miss the most about him. Talk to the people that you love about the person who is no longer here on earth. Talk to them about that. Right. When people wouldn't speak Logan's name, or wouldn't talk to me, or would turn the other way when I was in the state house, like I was a lobbyist and a legislator and a government official, so I knew a lot of people. And, when I went back to the state house, there were people who would see me and they'd dart off in a different direction, or they would say hi and put their head down. Right. Not because they didn't care, they just don't know what to say.
Exactly. Yes. So this is a really great conversation. If you're just tuning in, this is Sheila Mack Show, and this is NBC's KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're discussing getting back on track after dealing with a tragedy or a loss. And this year we have had so many different losses in our life. And so I and Kathleen here is our special guest. We're both moms who have lost a young adult or young teen. Was your son a teen?
He was 19.
19, yeah, and mine was 22. So there's been a lot of loss. I have 5 other parents just this year who have lost people in that age group, and it's a big thing. And there's a lot to be done about awareness with different situations that are going on, whether it's a mental situation where they take their life, or something where they're going through a terrible depression that nobody knows about. And it's hard you don't see it sometimes. You can miss it because it's so close to you, and it happens all the time. So awareness, this is Mental Health Month, so awareness is so important. Ask for help when you need it, if you need help. And if you have a friend that seems to be changing or acting a little differently, check in with them. Check in with the parents. If you're younger, check in with anybody you can to see if we can prevent losing more of our young people today. Then I have, out of the 5 that we've lost, I had 2 that were also suicides, and then there were 3 that were drug overdoses. Yeah. And people don't, you're a young person, or even whatever the age is, and they don't realize that some of the drugs they're creating now, it's not something light like a couple glasses of wine or a very light thing. It's that you may not wake up, or you may not come back from a trip. And so it's not the way it used to be. And it's very important because there's not enough awareness. In fact, one of them was an overdose, not on a drug, but alcohol.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
I don't think they even were aware. This was a young girl. I really was new to college, not aware that could even happen. not even, this is important to really share and talk about openly so that you know.
Yeah, and what's really important, I think, for you, the listener, that what's really important, there's a few things. One, your life matters. You matter. Even when you feel like you don't, you matter. The world is not better without you. You are wanted here. So please know that you're wanted here. Two, there are people who are teaching different things, myself and Sheila. They're like, what I share with you about the response to suicide or loss of sudden and unexpected loss is also a prevention measure. So what I teach for your daily practices, how you work through stress, how you deal with challenges and anxiety, how you move through that. You know, sometimes there are things that are blocked within our system from something that we experienced early in our childhood. And what I do healing processes called the regenerating images and memory. So I am a facilitator of helping you to locate that block that's within your system so you can dissolve it and change the patterns that you've created based on what you've experienced as a child. And even if that experience was that you cried too long in a crib, not because there was neglect, but there's a program that's created in your system. And so know that you can move through some of the discomforts that you're feeling right now in natural ways. Now, if there's medication that you're meant to be on, then I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, so please consult with a doctor. But I am an experienced healer of what I've experienced and what I've healed through. I experienced my birth father shooting at me as a young child, you know, because of alcoholism. And there was just all kinds of a early childhood trauma that I experienced. And there was a pattern that I followed based out of self-worth and worthiness and belief that I wasn't lovable. But that was a program that was misprogrammed out of what I knew as a child, not out of what was true to be true. And so the programs that we operate on throughout our life are based on early childhood programs. So if you can't change, or you feel like you're not changing a pattern, or you feel like you're stuck in a cycle, like you're getting in relationships that are the same over and over and over, experienced it, done it, know that you can change that pattern if you're willing to take your healing journey one hour at a time, one step at a time, because it's truly a journey, no matter what it is. You know, there's 30% higher depression. The rate of depression and suicide is 30% higher since COVID started. 30% higher. And suicide was already the second leading cause of 13 to 24-year-olds, already the second leading cause. So it's important for you, the listener, for me, for Sheila, to step into that healing journey and feel through the feelings you have, because you're not going to get stuck in it if you work with someone that knows what they're doing.
Yes. And, you know, that's the thing, that we all have something. You could do your best as a parent. I mean, I had 6 beautiful children, all very different. And they all have a different memory of what it was like growing up.
Exactly.
You know, and I'm like, really? How is it that they're so different? You're the best mom on the planet. Well, you weren't so good. And then it changes, and, you know, and it goes back and forth and round and round. And then, you know, they have their own children or their own things down there, like, oh, this is really hard stuff. And so when we're growing up, we go through different traumas, different situations that our parents probably did the best given what they had to work with. Sometimes they, like you said, alcoholism, or they had something else. Maybe that was treating another mental thing. A lot of people with ADD in different situations will drink in order to function. And so getting the proper help, a lot of times that could be with nutrition, you know, and different things, not always drugs, but working with a specialist. I did a lot of work with the Amen clinics, and have a lot of people that have gone to the Amen clinics for that and gotten off of all medicine. And now they just take vitamins and they change their diet, but it's a long process. It's not one day. or one thing. And, you know, I'm a student of Tony Robbins. I've gone to all his events, and he always says, take massive action. So when you or a loved one is going through something or feeling down, there's lots of action steps. You know, connect with community, read different books, and get different perspectives on how to best get back on track. Because it's not one thing, it's a bunch of little teeny steps. Sometimes those steps are you're crawling, you're not even walking, or you're just sitting still and you're not going backwards that day, and it's getting better. And before you know it, you look back and you're in a better place. And so it's those small steps that make all the difference.
Yeah, I think Esther Hicks talks about, you know, like you're stuck in the depression, and anger's better than depression. And then, you know, so it is little steps. For me, it's more like I felt like I was in that quicksand. I felt, you know, right after Logan, no matter what part of my body moved, I felt I was going deeper and deeper and deeper. And as I started to invest in my own healing, okay, now I'm in the swamp. Now I feel like, okay, I can trudge along. It's not comfortable, and I feel like I'm being dragged down once in a while, but I can get back up. And then there's, you know, being in the pond, and then eventually you feel like you're floating on top of the salt water. You know, like eventually, as you start to move through your process, there you have moments of like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I didn't know this could exist, especially after such a traumatic experience in my life. Like, and I have to say that every experience in our lives can have a light to it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that anything I experienced prior to Logan's suicide, I needed to experience that to create the strength that I had to continue to live after my son's suicide. I know that I needed to have that happen. Now, would I wish for that to happen again? Absolutely not. But now, as I've gone through a process of healing, and it's a journey, and it'll always be, I know that as I look back, I think, wow, you know, for the people that lived in my life that were a part of some of those traumas, can you imagine what they went through to be who they were? You know, like, really, like, there's compassion that comes there. And so when you have compassion and gratitude, it's really hard to live in the depression and anxiety. When you have compassion and gratitude and just love for what we do have. So every experience has a light. Not that you want to repeat those experiences, but every experience has a light.
Yes, once you find the light, it's like it kind of dissolves the harshness of it, and it's like it releases you from it in a certain way. And for me, when you were talking about patterns and how we repeat relationship situations in our minds. I don't know about you, but for my family and I, at first, we would go back to the tragedy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The loss. And your brain, I think human brains, we're trained because we're protecting ourselves. And so it's like an automatic response. And so I worked with my kids and myself, and it was hard work. I mean, this was like the hardest work ever, was to every time I go there, and it was like you wake up in the morning, it's there. You go to sleep at night, it's you know what I'm talking about. And so I was like, I need to retrain it. When I see that image, when I see these things, I need to go to, you know, what he would want us to remember, the good memories, good things. And it's actually rewiring your brain. You're retraining how you're remembering, and whether that's a trauma or an abuse from when you were a kid to losing a loved one or something very traumatic. When you retrain where your memory goes, you're building a new wire connection, a new synapse in your brain, and that's going to help you to be able to break free from the pattern of just getting stuck in there.
Yeah, and what might help you to get there, to start that process, is to think about, if you're the one that has transitioned and your loved one was left here, would you want your loved one to live in the suffering and pain, or would you want them to move through their healing journey so they could live a happy, productive, amazing life? You know, that answer is you'd want them to start to move on their healing journey. And so that's what I try to share with people. Is like and honestly, I'm not going to lie, that it still comes back.
Yes.
Just this last Christmas, I spent Christmas with a friend of mine for the first time since Logan's transition. So my daughter and I spent time with him, and he actually was the guy I was dating when Logan died. So we're really good friends now. We broke up shortly after Logan transitioned, but and that triggered something for me. That triggered something that I hadn't moved through yet. It was like, oh my God, the last Christmas I had with Logan was with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it just brought up all these memories of what I didn't have. And what I did was I allowed myself to feel what I needed to feel, not push it down, not mask it, not overwork, not avoid it. Like, I allowed myself to sit in those most uncomfortable feelings, to move through it. And once I sat in it and allowed myself to feel it, then I was able to see it in a different light. What a blessing to still be friends with someone that was a part of Logan's life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful that you're able to honor the emotions and the feelings. Mm-hmm. And if you are going through something, to create that sacred space where it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and how about anger? Did you get anger? Did anger come to you a lot? Because I know that's one of the steps.
Yeah. And so there's two things I want to address there. Is anger is part of grief. It is. And I want to make sure that you, the listener, that grief is not linear. Those emotions will come up on and off. It's kind of like a wave, you know, like sometimes it's really, really rough. Other times it's a little calm. Just know that it is a cycle. It is not a linear process. And for me, anger, I had a lot of anger to a lot of people, but not my son. Like, I was really angry with myself. I was really ashamed with myself. I'm like, how could I not save my son? I was a legislator. I'd worked for the governor. I'd owned businesses and operated it. Like, I was a successful businesswoman. How could I not save my son? I couldn't even show up in the local grocery store. I went grocery shopping in the next town for at least 6 weeks afterwards because I could not show. Of course, my grocery list was, you know, ice cream and bread and peanut butter. Like, do not do that, by the way.
Yes,
eat healthy.
Well, you will have to pay later. I'm paying now. Like, it happens, and it's like, oh my gosh, you just don't care for a little bit, and it just, and you do your best and keep it as healthy as you can to get through it, because it gives you strength. But there are days where you're just going to have some ice cream, and that's going to be okay too.
And you know what? Let yourself have the ice cream. You know, the more you deprive yourself and say no to yourself, the more you just start to shit on yourself. You know, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be. Well, you know, you're not ready to do any of that. And your body protects you in many ways. Your body talks to you in many, many ways. You know, like, we hold pain in certain areas in our body that's consistent throughout our lifetime. I know when I'm out of sync, when my shoulders start to tighten up. I know when something is happening in my life that doesn't resonate with me or that resonate with my life purpose. I know because my body's talking to me. So it gives me, when we listen, it gives us a chance to step back and say, okay, let's be quiet for a moment. What's not working here? What am I trying to make it happen when it's not meant to happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's
patience. Be patient with yourself, because it is a process, and it's okay. It doesn't matter what people think. And I think that's one of the gifts that I found was I really stopped giving a flying duck. That's the nice thing about, and not that, I mean, I love people. I care about everyone. What I stopped caring about was the good opinion of others, the, you know, social norms. You have to do X, Y, Z. You must do blah, blah. And it's like, you know what? I am going with my soul right now. I am going to be guided, and I'm going to get through this one step at a time. And if they don't like it, it's all good. Because in the end, it doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't, Sheila. You know, the one thing that I promised my son and myself, I'm like, If anything that I learned from this early on is life can change in the split second. Like, you do not know what's going to happen. So I am going to live in my purpose. Like, I'm going to do my best to live every minute of my life in the highest and best that I can. Like every minute. Now, have I honored that? Absolutely not. I have not honored that every minute in the last 10 years. I definitely did not. And it's a process. It's a learning process. And yeah, it's a learning process. So you quickly.
Sorry. The saying about you, some days you walk, some days you crawl. That's the way it is. And I think it's self-love to say, you know what, it's okay. You know what, when you look at what you have accomplished and what you've done despite the situation and the hardship where some other people may have also given up, and you think, you know what, give yourself credit.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to just sit down and say, what have I accomplished, even though 2020 has hit? What all the good things over my life, all these different things I've had to overcome, and who were you being? How did you have to show up in order to get to the other side? Because that's who you really are. I mean, this year we see who people really are. I mean, going through stress and a tragedy, and you're like, whoa, who the heck is this person? They're freaking out, or they're, you know, getting angry with everyone all the time. And it's like, it was just 2020, you know, but it hit them in a way, and they're reactive. And so we get into a certain action. When we're taking the action steps, we're out of reaction. And once in a while, we're still, I mean, I caught myself getting angry. I had somebody knocking on my door. It was a UPS guy. He would knock so loud, it sounded like the police.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, there's a doorbell there. What are you? And he's pounding. Like, the house is on fire. And one day I pounded back. What? But I pounded on the door, and I said, oh, wait. And I said, what did I do? Yeah. Where did that come from? That same morning, I found out one of my friends had lost her son.
Of course.
And it was a trigger. And I was like, oh my God. And my daughter ran out like, Mom, are you okay? Why are you pounding on the door? Because it's not me. And I was like, whoa. I said, let's talk about anger and how that comes out, because that just happened. And I knew that awareness of, I mean, the guy was really irritating to the whole family. It's the dog upset. Everybody gets upset, you know, because it's like he's got an angry knock on the door. But
yeah, so you wonder what's going on in his life too.
Yeah, and then I said, but where did that come from? Because that's like so not where they're, you know, my daughter's like, who's this? You know, you don't knock back. And then we all had a laugh. So laughter is also very healing. I mean, we were rolling on the floor laughing. My kids were laughing so hard at me because I was like, yeah, I was going to knock back. So this happens, and it'll surprise you. So yeah, if you have a friend who's lost a loved one and maybe they're off or they get angry at something, don't take it personally, because 99.9% of the times it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Yeah. A lot of what you've said, Sheila, is again in my book. It's just amazing that we're on the same wavelength. That I meet you yesterday, and here we are talking about some really deep emotional stuff. And it's just all those things, including, you know, creating new traditions. You know, we're coming up on holiday season, and the last thing on earth people want to deal with is a holiday when we've just lost a loved one. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it could be just a month ago. You know, think about you know, I think about you who've lost a loved one during COVID when you couldn't be there. And so there's some trauma all involved in there. So I'd love to share a couple of things of new traditions that I used.
Yeah.
If that's okay, that I would.
Great.
Just one of the traditions that first of all, I didn't celebrate the first year. So if you feel like you don't want to celebrate, give yourself that grace and don't, you know. And if you don't want to do what you used to do, switch it up, you know, go away for the weekend, only celebrate with your immediate family, not your whole family, or vice versa, whatever, or bring family and friends over. So there's that. Then if it's a child, and you want to invite one of their friends over, or 2 or 3 of their friends over, invite them over, have a conversation about some of the things that you loved about your loved one. You know, let the tears flow.
Yes.
And let the communication, the stories flow, because the more you speak of the stories, the more stories will come about for you. You'll start remembering more stories. The other thing that I did do once I did celebrate was I set a placemat for my son. Mm-hmm. Even though he was not there, his placemat was there. So it is clear his life did exist and continues to. And what I did sometimes, he was a big basketball player, and so sometimes I put his basketball on his seat, or I would put his one of his favorite shirts on the back of the chair. Yeah. Put his phone on his plate. You know, like whatever is special for them, bring that to the table. Make a special dish that they loved. You know, whatever dish, particularly their favorite dishes, whether it is traditional or not traditional, make that dish. And as you're passing around that dish, start talking about a story about the person that's no longer here in physical form. Yeah. And another one that I felt really, really important, because it was probably the hardest, and it still brings emotion in a happy way that I get to do it now. But, you know, I went to get a Christmas card for my daughter at Christmas, and I happened to be standing in front of the sun sign. Yeah. On the, and I look up and I'm like, oh my God, I can't, like, I just went running out of the store. Yeah. I end up going back. The point of me telling you this is, don't stop buying cards. If you're a card buyer, buy a card. Mm-hmm. Sit down light a candle, or do something, create a new tradition for yourself, and write a letter to your loved one. Talk about your life. Talk about what you miss about them. Talk about whatever comes up. Mm-hmm. Put it in the card, seal it, and put it in their stocking. You know, for the last 8 years, I've done that. And I've got a nice little box of Logan's cards now with letters that I've written to him. And were they easy letters? No. I cried. Yeah. I laughed. I was grateful. You know, like, I know he shows up. Yeah. And the other thing is, look for signs. Like, your loved ones are here. They are giving you signs every single day. My son's basketball number was 33. His jersey number was 33. And when there's time for messages from me, 33 shows up. Mm-hmm. When 33 is there. And so just look for the signs, because they're here with us.
Oh, we have so many signs at home as well. And, you know, before my son passed, he left my daughter with a suitcase in her car, and he bought a car with the state plates of where we ended up moving to. And it was really interesting, because my daughter has nothing in her car. She's a minimalist. So she's like, I have a suitcase. Why don't you take it back? And she was like, all week, she was like bugging him about it. And she's like, oh, he knew, and he wanted me to be with mom again and to be in this place. And then with everything that happened, she's like, I'm kind of glad that we're at the lake house and in this really safe, beautiful community at a time where we needed that. And my daughter is not one to move. So it was like she needed that. And there's little signs we get that are so interesting. I still have a feather that is literally on my back door, right above in the center of the threshold to the back door leading to the yard. It has been there since January. Now, we've had wind, we've had rain, we've had all kinds of storms, crazy. The feather is still there. I'm like, okay, this is interesting.
It's totally your son.
Yeah, I mean, how do you?
I had God bumps when you were talking about that all over my body. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something, you know, whatever spiritual thing you believe, that there's even science that our intentions that we place on another, on water, on plants, on people, it changes the structure. So even if you can't show up for a friend or a loved one, sending a prayer, a blessing, a thought, a good energy, they're going to feel that. I had so many people that could not show up, because it was the holidays, because it was, you know, that season. And I really feel like I felt, and my daughter felt like those energy prayers and blessings carried us through at the time when we don't know how we were getting through. And
Yeah.
so that even makes a difference.
Yeah,
And
it does.
yes, I think so. So tell us more about, there was something else. You do the healing practice. How are you doing that with other people now with COVID?
So I can virtually, so since Logan and all the healing that I've done, I have moved through all the layers that blocked my own light. So I can honestly say that I believe I have light now. Like we're all the divine, we're all universe, God, divine, Allah, whatever you choose. Like we're all part of that. We're all energy.
Mhm.
And I have found my gifts of being able to channel information and energy to help heal people. So I don't have to be in the same room with someone. I can do it virtually. Um, I, yeah, well, I figured that out through working on a dog. And that's when I finally started to have confidence in my gifts that I was given, because the dog doesn't speak, it's their actions. So there was some confidence building there for me.
Mhm.
So I do that. And then I also am a Jack Canfield certified success principal coach. And so I blend some of those coaching tools and techniques and with some of the healing and some of the gifts that I give other people. And I also like Shattered Together is a guidebook that helps people to create their daily practices. And it gives everything that, well, some of the things that we talked about and more um, in the book. So that is the journey. And then there's online programs that I help people with, that I'm doing virtual sacred circles twice a week. Only up to 20 people can be on it. And as I channel, I also use oracle cards as like a final message for the group. I channel and then I use energy that way. And then the regenerating images and memory, I'm a master facilitator now.
Mhm.
And I can do that virtually, and that's the client led. So there's two different, I lead one way and the client leads the other. So it just, yeah.
I love that. And think about this. You came from this corporate, legislative, I mean, like really corporate kind of deal. And now you have reinvented your life completely. Like you have gone on a whole different.
Well, one of the gifts I feel so grateful for is that now, as I look back, my life has been of service. For close to 25 years, I worked in government and lobbying and caring, and like I worked, yeah, for homelessness and transportation and housing for low income, and I advocated for. It doesn't matter that, like, I've done a lot of service work through government, and now I can be of service in a different way. Like now I'm serving my purpose in this world. Like I know that my purpose was to be of service, and now I feel like I'm delivering it in the way that I am meant to. So
yeah. So, okay, this year, what comes to me is this year, some of us are called to do, I don't know, jobs, work that maybe not fit. It's not the perfect fit. It's not exactly aligned with our soul calling forever. And it's okay, because look how Kathleen showed up in how she was serving and what she was doing. It was her energy she was putting into all her work that made a difference. So whether you're home with your kids or working at an extra side job or two or three to make things work this year, that's okay, because it's not forever, and it's how you're showing up. That energy is going to change and shift the entire group that you're working with, the employees, co-workers, your family, children, community. So that makes a big difference. I love that. Great. All right. Well, we are coming to the end of our talk, and I'd like for you to share how people can get connected with you, Kathleen.
So anybody can just connect with me on CathleenElle.com. So it's CathleenElle.com. And all my social media is at Kathleen Elle Inspires. So that's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Twitter is just Kathleen Elle because it's shorter. But any of the social media, you can reach me there. And I just am so grateful that we connected, Sheila. Like I just really am honored to be here, and I appreciate your time. And as a listener, just know that you matter. Just know that you matter.
Thank you.
And life can be bright.
Yes. Yes, there is another side to this year, and to getting through different losses and getting to the other side, reinventing and rebooting our lives on our terms. Now you're living on your terms. You are the perfect example of that. That's wonderful. All right. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you next week. All right.